get started on the course study. It's just a crash course. I'm going to try and go through it as quickly as possible, only because at this point it should be revision. Now, for the course study and the way that the exam is structured, you're only going to get the 5 marker and the 10 mark multiple choice. So you can only really get assessed in that way for SOR. So knowing it in this super, super great detail just isn't necessary. It is pretty short when we're looking at contemporary Aboriginal spiritualities. Um, it's not like a full page worth of dot points, and it's split up with post 1945. We're going to start with contemporary Aboriginal spiritualities, but I wanted to put this on here to start off with because this syllabus is your best friend in SOR. The syllabus is so important. They will take questions word for word, and like word for word in my trials, our 5 marker was discuss how Aboriginal spirituality is determined by the dreaming. So then naturally you're going to bring up the three dash points. But they've done the same for discuss the continuing effect of dispossession, and it's the 3 dot points, or outline the importance of native title. And the questions are so predictable in SOR, guys. I don't want to sound super repetitive, and I'm already sounding repetitive because I was talking about how easy SOR is. But in that case, there's not many syllabuses that are like this, that they just take the questions so directly, and it's almost to the point that you can guess. Like, I'm very confident, I don't know any of you guys personally watching, but I'm very confident that you have probably never come across a question in SOR and been like, oh, what am I going to do? Especially for these topics, because they're just so based off and kind of founded and coded in the syllabus, which is why the syllabus is your best friend. If your notes aren't separated by the syllabus, I definitely recommend it. And I really do recommend memorizing syllabus. Our teacher used to get us to fill in the blanks for the syllabus just to make sure that we knew it. And the last thing that I looked at before going into my SOR trials and my SOR trial and my SOR HSC wasn't my actual notes, it was the syllabus. And just going over and just making sure I know which dashes belong to which dot points and what belongs where. It makes such a game changer, and especially in this first and in the core, the questions are just straight from it, so it's in your best interest. My teacher, what she would get us to do was to write practice questions based off the learn tos, and we had written a practice. She was a past HSC marker, and she put a lot of work on like the 5 markers and getting those marks. So we had written a 5 marker on every single dot point and dash in this learn to. And at the time I was very angry. I was like, I don't want to write like a 5 marker on every single point, and we did it for post 1945 as well. But looking back at how much that helped, there was never a question that I received where I was like, oh, I don't know what to do, because just by practicing that, and I'm not saying all of you guys have to go and write a 5 marker for all of it now, but you should, when you're reading through the syllabus, you should feel confident, okay, I know how to write a 5 marker solely on kinship or solely on the stolen generations. And if you don't, that's your indicator to go back to your notes and to add to them. Now, I want to talk a little bit about study advice. I promise I am going to get to the core, but SOR, I feel like there's not much study advice out there. At this point in SOR, if you have not finished your notes, it depends how far you are on. I promise you can get these notes done in a day for the entire core in a couple hours, because you don't need that much on each point. Again, the max that they can ask you is a 5 marker. You're not getting an essay. It can't be anything more than 5 marks, and only one of the topics will come up, like one dot point, and potentially the dashes will come up. They're not going to ask and like interlink all of them together. So there's no point putting in this like really extensive study. Like, it's much more worthwhile putting in that extensive study to your significant person and your significant practice and your teaching, only because that can be assessed in such greater detail, especially as like a 20 mark essay. But for this, you know that the max is going to be a 5 marker, so it doesn't need to be anything too dramatic. Now, it depends how far behind you are on SOR, and no judgment in this house, because it is so easy to fall behind on SOR, and it's really easy to fall behind because SOR honestly can get really dull and repetitive. I think the content itself isn't really hard. It's pretty decent to understand. There's just a lot of it, and it's honestly so much memorizing. And if it feels really repetitive and you get like really bored in class. I feel behind on notes all the time and would have to catch up. It depends how far behind you are. If you have no notes, and your trials are in like 2, 3 weeks, I don't recommend writing your own and starting now, only because you've got like a whole year's worth of content to catch up on. Instead, I recommend just honestly going online and using online free notes. There's so many that you can find. Just search like SOR full notes, and you can search like SOR Christianity notes, SOR Islam notes, depending on what um, religious faith you're doing. But otherwise, I don't think you need to, because it's just an extra step, because you're going to write those notes, then you have to study and learn those notes. You can also, hopefully, from this lecture, I'm going to take away that you should be memorizing the syllabus, and then also practice papers and practice responses. It's just a lot to it, and in that short time frame, adding that pressure to yourself just isn't necessary when the content in SOR is all the same. And I feel like there's this weird stigma about like using other people's notes, but like I did it for SOR as well. I did it and I still got a 94. Like the content stays the same, especially for these topics. There's some really good summaries online. And by the end of full HSC, I had my own notes and I made my own summaries just because I had a bit more time. But my class notes were pretty long and like just pretty jam-packed, and I found quite a few good summaries online. So I just really recommend it. If you're not up to date with it, or if you feel like your notes are just too clunky and you don't know what to do, there's a lot of good work, thankfully online. Um, but otherwise, studying for SOR, if you are on top of your notes, or if like maybe you've just got one topic, 2 topics to catch up on, it's still in your best interest to catch up on those. I definitely recommend it. I'm just saying, for people that barely have any notes at all, don't bother. Um, and you can, on it, like if you want to bother, you can do it after trials. I just think with trials around the corner, you're better off just going straight to like learning and understanding the content, which is going to be exactly the same if you get like condensed notes online. But if you only have like one topic, or maybe you like neglected, you didn't finish these ones and you're halfway through, definitely finish it. It's definitely in your best interest then. It's only as like if you don't have notes at all, you barely have any, that I'd say don't bother. Otherwise, guys, SOR to study for is really just practice questions. It's practice questions. The syllabus has not changed. Let me tell you this gem. The syllabus has not changed since 2009. So there are so many papers. There's over 10 papers that you can sit, and you can imagine with a syllabus like this, kind of like tight, and like there's honestly not too much content like going around, that they ask the same questions on repeat. And the more past papers you sit, and I say that, but you don't even necessarily have to sit them. Like you don't have to sit every single past paper from 2009 to 2022 to get a band 6. I mean, like, great if you want to, and great if you have the time to, and great if you can, but you don't have to. But even just exposing yourself to the different questions and sitting with them, opening them on your laptop, being like, okay, I'll study first off for 30 minutes, but I'm going to go through the 2020 to 2022, the 3 papers, and I'm going to look at the different questions and think, okay, how would I structure it? What dashes would I bring up? What would my thesis be? And just like looking at the question, you don't necessarily have to write it, because I think like the SOR paper, well, it depends whether you're sitting SOR 1 or SOR 2. But if you are sitting SOR 2, it's a 3-hour paper, and sitting down for 3 hours, and writing the short answers, then the multiple choice, then your short answers on your like 2 religions, then your religious essay on 1 on 20, and then your religion and peace essay. It's just we just keep it just keeps going. It just keeps going on. And yeah, we're just not loving it. So that's why I really recommend that if you're not going the best with past papers, and it's definitely hard for SOR. If it's SOR 1, I really do recommend just sitting it and getting used to timing, because it is a shorter exam. But for SOR 2, for anyone watching that's doing it, it is 3 hours, so it's going to take longer. And I don't know, personally, I do like a past paper, and that was it for me. That was my study for the day. I couldn't do anything else because I was tired from writing an exam, and mimicking the conditions. So if you know that you're going to struggle with sitting a full past paper, that's so normal. I didn't even start off by like, I wasn't like, okay, all my study's done now, I'm going to sit a full past paper. I started doing it section by section. I was like, okay, today I'll do the short answers. And I was like, okay, tomorrow I'll do two sets of multiple choice from past questions. But my best advice to you guys is to just go through as many past papers as you can, try as many multiple choice questions as possible, and I promise you they ask the same questions in different words, and they just kind of like a recycle repeat because they haven't changed the syllabus in so long. So you, at this point, it's almost like you can guess what the question's going to be and you can kind of predict it. And the more you expose yourself to past papers, the less shocked you'll be in trials and HSC. Some people will come out of trials and HSC for SOR and be like, oh my gosh, like I was never expecting that. But the trials and the HSC, because the syllabus has not changed in so long, like they can't throw you off anymore. They've essentially asked everything, and it's just like, oh, what are they going to re-ask again? What are they going to recycle with different words? And there hasn't really been any times where there's been like really big complaints about something that Nessa's pulled off in the exam, only because it's been around for so long. So um, the exam has really just stayed the same in the structure of it, and they're not really throwing in like these wild cards. I think in that sense, SOR is just a very good subject because, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people think that it doesn't scale well, but it actually does scale pretty well, and it competes pretty well with some of the other humanities, like the histories. But on top of that, it is very very easy to get above 80 and above 90. It's really just on memorizing. And if you are losing marks on SOR, it's understanding content, just making sure you actually understand what you're writing about. And it's not just like you just know a definition and you haven't like linked it to the question, and structure. So it's kind of like English in disguise, with, let's sprinkle 100% memorized content. But we're going to go on with Aboriginal spirituality. So